Let's talk about baseball, which is one of the ministries that the Lord has given us. Now, when I say ministries, it's definitely certainly not like a traditional ministry where you go into a church and there's a pastor. What I mean is baseball is a calling, an area of my life that the Lord has given me, which by default would include you because you're my wife. Like you don't play baseball, but commonly you're there in the stands with me and you definitely go through the journey with me. So
Yeah, I was there last week and got to watch the game. It was amazing. It was so fun to watch you pitch and do really well. So, yeah, I consider it my ministry too because I support you so you can do your ministry. So,
well, isn't that like everything else? You support me so that I have the strength and the emotional ability to go and do whatever it is I'm trying to do.
yeah, that's definitely it. I really do see that as my calling. My calling is to be there to help you. And because you're the adventurous one, you're the one who loves to do all the things. And I really enjoy being a support to help you do all those things.
So for you personally, I know that you have what you feel is two callings or two ministries that the Lord has given you. Number one is teaching. You feel called
Right.
to help those kids and the other teachers. And then number two is me.
It's
It's taking
you.
care of me.
Yes. And those two things keep me very busy. So by default, by you being one of my ministries, that means I have several other ministries because I'm supporting you in all the things you're doing. So.
It's like supporting me is a full-time job. But I don't know. In this world we live in today, how does that define you as a person? Like, what is your identity if a lot of what you do is supporting me?
It's not just you that I support. I have a natural, I guess, supporter identity. That's what I do. And I want to support my kids. I want to support my friends. I want to support my churches. I'm not so much a leader. I don't really go for leadership roles as much as I really enjoy helping others succeed.
And you have definitely helped me succeed. Without question, I wouldn't be the man that I am today, and I wouldn't be able to do anything. Really, I wouldn't be able to tie my shoes without you. I feel
Well,
like
because you wouldn't have your shoes because
that's
I
true.
always get your shoes for you.
I'm like,
So no.
where's this? Where's this item? I don't know where it is. Like, Laura, help me out.
I know.
Eh,
Well, this morning you gave me a challenge though, because you're like, change the battery in this remote. And it was not a normal battery in that remote. And I'm like, I know we have those batteries somewhere. And I'm like, feeling the stress to support you through finding a battery, which I found.
So let's clarify that a little bit. It's more like we have learned in our marriage that I'm definitely not the finder of things guy, and you're really good at it. So, I've learned just to turn it over to you because I'm like, batteries for this fan remote. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm working on writing a blog post right now, so I'm just going to turn it over to you, and you actually enjoy that process.
Yeah, I do. But what is not good is when I can't find something because then everything just kind of falls apart. And it's like if you can't find it, I can't find it. It's like we're sunk.
Yeah, if it doesn't happen between the two of us, we have big problems, and pretty much the world
Yes.
is coming to a conclusion.
Yes. The world comes crashing down if we can't find a battery.
So that's an aspect of marriage and your calling. So one of my callings is baseball. So right now I'm playing in the Houston Baseball Association. It's an amateur recreational league, but it's fantastic as it's taken very seriously by everyone who plays in the league. They have drafts, they have tryouts, championship games, all-star games at big locations. It's awesome. So I take it very seriously, and it's the first stage of what I'm calling my journey in baseball in my 40s here. So I'm 49 years old and I'm playing baseball. And commonly, I'm the starting pitcher for our team, or I'm definitely the relief pitcher. But this week, we took on the Marlins in our league, and it's always a good game when we're playing. And I was the starting pitcher. The problem was it was super hot in Houston. It was like in heat index of 104, and there was no wind whatsoever.
So usually, it's 104, but you get a little bit of a breeze and it's like, yeah, it's fine. This is manageable. It was stifling hot last weekend.
There was no break from the radiation of oppression that was the sun. And normally I'm super grateful for the sun because I feel like I'm solar powered. You go outside and it's a clear day. You're like, yeah, I have energy, as opposed to like a rainy day and it's cloudy, which I also love because it's cozy, right? But like sometimes I just feel like, okay, it's rainy and cloudy, and I'm just going to be quiet. But no, this past weekend, it was super bright, heat index of 104, radiating oppressive heat. And I find myself on the mound and there's no breeze. And I look over in the stands and there's you and mom and dad, and the sun's just beating down on you. And it was very, very hot.
Right. And we have talked about this baseball field, which you love because the mound is really nice. It's a beautiful field. It is my least favorite because there is no shade. All the other fields at least have something covering the stand so that you have shade. So you have to bring your umbrella. So we're standing there, or we're sitting there with our umbrellas, which is the shade helps definitely. But I'm sitting there in a tank top and shorts and flip flops with an umbrella over me, and I am like sweating so hot. And I'm looking at you out on the field, no shade. You're wearing a dark brown, beautiful jersey. It's beautiful, but it's dark brown. You've got on the long socks, you got on cleats, and you're just standing in that blazing sun. And I didn't know how you were doing it because I was dying just to stand up.
No, I was barely hanging on, to be honest with you. This sounds like so much whining, and it is, okay? Because I love to play baseball. I love to play baseball. I like being outside in the heat and the cold, and just like experiencing nature and the game of baseball the way it was meant to be played. Beautiful. I'm simply admitting it was so hot and oppressive with the heat index and no wind. I felt like I was standing on the pitcher's mound in full uniform, no clouds, and it's just like radiating on me. And I'm just sitting there like on the pitcher's mound as I'm getting ready to pitch. I'm just like, ugh, like trying to breathe. And I have like nausea from how hot it is. And my body, the conversation inside my mind is like, dude, why are you doing this? And my heart is like enjoying every moment because I'm so thankful to be out there pitching, playing baseball with umpires and a few fans and two very serious teams. But like it was hard to breathe, and I was definitely very nauseated. I was getting exhausted very quickly as a pitcher, and I started that game. But it's just hard. It's super hard, and I love it. But there was no break whatsoever as far as like clouds or wind or drop the heat a little bit from the Lord. No, we just had to stand there and be oppressed as the pitcher.
I feel like, though, in retrospect, you seem to do better when something like when you started with your arm injured, or you're not feeling well, or it's hot, and you think, it makes me think of like that Nolan Ryan story where he's like, you better have someone warming up as he's going out to the mound to start, and then he pitches, like, what was it, a no-hitter that he ended up pitching? Like, I feel like that's you're like, oh man, I'm oppressively hot, or my arm is I've got problems with it, and then you go out and you do well. So maybe that's the key.
It could be, because I definitely have the head games going on with different things talking to me in my mind and pulling me different directions. And so it's like, that's a good analogy, a good story there of Nolan Ryan, where he had problems in his elbow area. And he was like, man, I'm probably going to be injured. I don't know if I'm going to make it. And so he had another pitcher warming up, and then he went on and got like a no-hitter. He did fantastic. Yeah. And I feel a lot of that on the days where I'm like, okay, I feel really good. I'm relaxed. I'm not nervous. Beautiful day. My arm feels fantastic. In fact, I'm throwing really fast. Then I go out there and it's almost like too much. It's too much without any adversity. And it's not every time, but I would say that maybe more I tend not to do that great. It is the moments, and maybe this is a metaphor for life and following the Lord, right? It's the moments where I have adversity, like maybe my arm hurts, my body's tired, my back is tight, it's super hot. It's like it gets that into my mind, like, oh man, I have to overcome this. And I tend to do a little bit better. So perhaps that's the case.
Maybe you're focusing more on the heat, or focusing more on just standing against that, resisting that, so that it frees you up to, you're not thinking so much about your pitches because you're distracted by whatever it is. So,
I think you're right. That's without anything else, it's very difficult for me to walk up on the pitcher's mound and be relaxed and completely confident. I'm always somewhat nervous, which I appreciate because I have feeling, but there's always an aspect of me that's scared because in baseball, it's just you. You're the pitcher. You're the main guy standing all by yourself on the mound, and you have to precisely throw a pitch into this little square box, which is 60 feet 6 inches away, without hitting the batter standing right there next to it. And that's hard with everybody watching, both teams and the audience. With everybody watching, that's really hard, and I love it. Don't get me wrong; it's a place that I really want to be, and I'm so grateful for. But it's very hard because all the focus is on you. And especially starting out in the league when I was coming back to baseball 3 years ago, the first times walking out on that mound, it's just like I was so nervous. There was conversations in my head of like my heart would be, oh, I really want to do this. This is awesome. I'm so thankful, Lord. And my mind would be like, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. Why are you doing this? This is difficult. My body's like, I'm so nervous. I can't breathe. And I just have to tell myself like, guy, would you relax, chill out, have some faith? We're going to get through this. And like pitching for me is a lot of like walking my faith as a Christian following Jesus to be like, I'm scared, but I also love this. I don't know what this next pitch is going to do or what's going to happen, but I'm going to throw it. I'm going to step out on faith and be nervous, but I'm going to take courage. And this opportunity is something from the Lord. So all of these things are going on in my head every time I get up on the pitcher's mound.
I think baseball is a great analogy for life because one of the things that about the way the game is played, like it's you get up there and you throw, and at the game last weekend you would get to a full count, 3-2 several times, and you usually ended up striking them out. But every pitcher that came up or every batter that came up, it was like drama. And
Yeah.
then the whole time I'm watching you pitch, I'm just like, please, 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 and then the guy would get out and I would be like, oh, thank you. But then lo and behold, up walks another batter. And so it's not like with football, you get the touchdown, yay. It's like, that was one of three, and the next inning you're going to have to get three more and three more. And so it's like this, not the high energy drama, but like this just constant drama of watching. And you can celebrate a batter getting out, but not too much because there's another one coming.
Yeah.
So it is definitely a metaphor for life because there's no when you're like, oh, yay, that was great, I'm done. No, life's going to send you up another one, and you're just going to have to keep battling it out.
Perfect. I love it. And that's the whole thing. Like you could have a top level batter like an Aaron Judge that you're pitching to, and you're very cautious and you try to throw it and somehow you get that person out, right? And you're like, yes. And then the next person comes up and you're like, dang it. It could be Juan Soto from the Yankees or something. Or maybe it's someone who isn't recognized as being a very consistent, powerful hitter, but you're still like, man, you never know. You never know. You could throw a pitch to this person and they could hit a home run, even someone who doesn't commonly hit home runs. So it makes the game for me really interesting because you just never know. And you brought up the idea of humor, and I automatically, in drama, I automatically thought of the movie Happy Gilmore with Adam Sandler, which is one of his first movies. It's a golf movie, which has nothing to do with baseball. But in the film, in the storyline of the movie, you're following the tour champ, the guy who's a big time winner. His name is Shooter McGavin, and he's this cocky, confident guy, and everybody's following him. But then you get this rogue, renegade, kind of loser guy in Adam Sandler, and he comes into the game of golf, and he's not great. He's really rough around the edges. But people really enjoy following him because of the drama that he brings. And I definitely see myself as that Happy Gilmore in baseball type role to where I want to go up on the mound and have the glory and authority of the Lord behind me and just strike everyone out. And I feel that in me. And sometimes we kind of get glimpses of that.
It made me think of that line when he hits the hole in one and he says, oh, I should just do that every time. Like, I'm like, that would be
shoots,
great.
He scores. Yeah. Oh man, I should just hit it in the hole every single time. Yeah. That's what I want to do as a pitcher.
Yes, I should just strike them out every time.
That's what I want to do, but it doesn't happen, right? And I find people getting more invested in me, whether it's my team or people in the league or the few fans that we have, because of the drama. Like it's never easy. It's never easy. For example, in the first inning, no one had scored, but the bases were loaded. I think I walked a guy, and there were a couple really bloop weak hits, and so the bases are loaded. And that's always like in the first inning, bases loaded. You don't want that as a pitcher, and everybody's like, "Oh no, this is going the wrong direction." And yet, I find myself in that type of adversity a lot, to where it's like if I mess up, they're going to score, and the other team's going to start to win, and that's a lot of pressure. But the Lord has put me in that position in my life and in the game of baseball so much that I'm used to it by now, to where I have to be honest with you, I don't mind when I'm the pitcher and the bases are loaded at all. I actually kind of like it, because what happens is with every base loaded, no runner can steal. And I don't have to focus on the runners and be worried about like, oh, keeping them on base and all that. I'm just focused on the batter. And on top of that, I don't have to pitch from the stretch, where I'm just to the side and I'm looking at all the runners. I can pitch straight from the windup to where I'm looking right into the center. I'm looking forward, straight forward, and I just concentrate and I just do that. And I like the pressure, to be honest with you. Like, hey, man, if you mess up, they're going to score some runs.
They'll come talk to you on the mound, and they used to pull you out of the game.
Oh, yeah.
And now they just come talk to you, and they're like, yeah, I don't know what y'all say out there. And then they all leave, and you're still on the mound. And I'm like, I think they're getting used to seeing you be that way too. They're like, oh, bases loaded. Well, Andy gets out of it a lot. So they have a lot more confidence in you and your ability to get into those situations and still work yourself out of them.
I agree completely. Definitely in the beginning, I would get the bases loaded and they'd worry and they would just pull me out of the game. And I'm like, guys, let's pitch a little bit here. Let's see what happens. So now they've started to trust me, because time after time after time, I'll get the bases loaded, which is annoying. I want to dominate as a pitcher, but that's what happens. I'll get the bases loaded, and it's like the drama builds, and then I get out of it. Like, I'm so used to that drama building that now I'm like, okay, whatever. I
think
care.
they're used to it as well, and I like it. I like it because
Yeah.
they can throw anywhere. It's like any base is an out, and so
That's right.
It's kind of, it works in your favor in a way, and they're used to seeing it, and their outfield has gotten really good too, where they're.
Yeah.
I mean, just really making those really great catches, and so as a team, y'all are really, really working well together.
I agree. It seems like over the course of 3 years, we've really found a good pitching staff. And one of the aspects of our team is the outfield, to where there'd be some struggles here and there of people not really tracking the balls down well. Now it seems like we have solid guys out there who are very consistent, and I just don't question it. So when a ball is hit out there, which is fine, because at least they're not hitting a home run or getting a base hit, the outfielders are tracking it down. So I feel like we are advancing as a team. And the great thing about it is I feel like we're really growing closer as a bunch of guys who trust each other and give each other the respect and support and encourage each other, even when the situation seems like it's not going the right direction in the game. So in that first inning, for me as the starting pitcher, I got the bases loaded, but then we all worked out of it and we walked back to the dugout and nothing happened. But the second inning was great, because I feel like I started to really find my rhythm, and I threw a ball and there's a guy who got a ground hit. And then for the next 5 batters in a row, I struck them out, which is something that I've not ever done before. Like, I wish I could do that all the time, and it was, God likes to do it to me where people don't really notice, and it's not this huge massive thing where the crowds gather and everything, but like kind of subtly between 2 innings, like I struck out 5 guys in a row, which is
right,
awesome.
But it's hidden because it's not like you threw 3 pitches and struck them out.
Yeah.
You would have it full count, and so it's hidden. We didn't even, until you mentioned I struck out 5 guys in a row. I was like, really? Because it didn't look like that, because
Right.
you kept getting full counts before you would actually strike them out.
That's what God does to me, This is not baseball by chance. This is God having his hand on the game of baseball and making the decision to do these things to me. That's what I figure is going on, right? But it works, because it's not like I'm seen as the dominant pitcher who struck out 5 guys in a row. No, it's like we're playing a game. It's super hot. People are doing good and not doing so great. And among that, between 2 innings, I struck out 5 guys in a row. So it's not like I had a bunch of pride about what I did. I had the gratitude of the opportunity that the Lord gave me between 2 innings to strike out 5 guys in a row, which is fantastic. So we go into, I think, the 3rd inning, and we're winning 2-0. And so I'm feeling pretty good. But to be honest with you, because of the heat, I'm just whipped, exhausted. It was so oppressive. And I hate to keep bringing up this excuse, but I'm serious, man. It was so hot. It was ridiculous that day. But so we come into the third inning, and I strike the two guys out in a row. And I'm like, all right, I'm doing good. And then I completely lost it, and I couldn't get anybody out. So after 3 innings of no scores, they got a couple hits. They brought in 2 runs, and I was just exhausted, like physically because of the heat, emotionally because the stress of it all. But so they ended up taking me out at that point, which was fine because I was tired.
You and the catcher had to come out too, because you two are the hardest workers, in the innings, because you're constantly pitching and catching, and so the people in the infield and the outfield, they're standing waiting for the ball to be hit to them, but you two are constantly working hard, and he ended up coming out as well, and he was even, I don't know how the catchers do that, because they've got all that gear on top of this uniform. So it was brutal.
Yeah, so I was a catcher for 15 years, starting off as a kid and going through college. So I know how hard it is to be back there squatting in the dirt, even closer to the oppressive heat as it radiates and bounces back off the ground. So it was like after 3 innings, we were done. But then Yuli came in, who was another starting pitcher. He's a great, fantastic pitcher in the league. And he shut him down for the rest of the game. I don't think he allowed any more runs. He pitched really well for 5 innings or so. And I was thankful for that. So I got to do my job, not as consistent and dominant the whole way through, because I would like to pitch the whole game. But I'm also thankful that my friend Yuli, my teammate, got to come in and he got the win because our guys started to hit and we came around and finished it up.
At least your game this weekend, it is super hot again, but you have an evening game, so that's gonna help with the heat issue quite a bit, I think.
Yeah, so tonight is that Spring Spirit, which is an all turf field, but it's outdoors and it's at night, so we'll be able to have a cooler atmosphere, and perhaps things will play out in a similar way to where we get the win there as well. So on this journey of baseball, to kind of take you back through it, I played in high school and college until I was like 22 years old. I tried out for the major leagues, and I always did well. Like I made the cuts of the top players in the combine events before the scouts, but I never got a call to come be a professional baseball player. And I don't blame them, because I was a good average small college baseball player, but only once in a while would you see as a catcher my arm would really zip the ball down to second base. Only every once in a while would I do that great as a batter. And so I was done, and I wasn't really around a league that I knew about or could play in, because back then you got to keep in mind there was no internet really. People didn't post like, hey, here's this baseball league for adults that you can play in. So I didn't get to play baseball for 20, let's just call it 23, 25 years, until it was, and it hurt me so much because I felt like God called me to play baseball. I feel like one of the ministries of my life where I was going to serve him and point the way to Jesus was simply by enjoying and playing the game of baseball. And that never came to fruition. It just never happened, because after college, I was done and there was no opportunities for me to play. So I was hurt so badly because I loved baseball so desperately, and it was like a big joy in my life, that I could barely enjoy watching the game myself just because I wanted to be playing it. So for about 20, 23 years, I would say there was nothing about baseball in my life. And then as an older guy in my 40s, I joined the Corps of Cadets at Texas A&M, which is a military-based leadership organization. One of the largest, I think it's the largest group of cadets in the entire world. And in that experience, some of the cadets were like, hey, you used to play college baseball, so come play with us. And I'm like, no, man, I can't play anymore. I used up all my college eligibility. And they're like, it doesn't matter, just come play with us. Well, turns out I was still good somehow, even after not throwing a baseball for like 23 years. My arm was really good. And I played in a few games, but the league officials were like, hey, this guy can't play baseball because he used up all of his eligibility in the 4 years he played way back in his 20s in college. So they kicked me off the team. They're like, he can't play. And I was devastated. I was like, Lord, why would you do this to me? It hurt so bad to lose baseball originally when I was a kid, and now you brought it back into my life, even though I wasn't planning for anything with baseball. And you opened my heart to the game again, and then you took it away again. because I'm not eligible to play because the Corps Cadets team was a Division II, very serious official team, in college baseball. And so there I was without baseball again. But I just felt like, well, Lord, why would you bring baseball into my life and then take it away again? That doesn't make sense. And so through the quiet, subtle voice in the back of my spirit, I felt like I discerned the Lord telling me, well, like just keep practicing. And so for 3 years by myself alone in my yard, I just threw a ball into a net. That's all I did as a pitcher for 3 years. And then
Well, and not
finally,
only did you throw the ball into the net, you taught yourself multiple pitches. You taught yourself how to pitch the slider and curveball and things, and you practice different pitches and you practice different techniques. It's not like you just went out in the yard and lobbed the ball around. Like, you took it very seriously, and for 3 years there didn't seem to be any reason. You just felt called that this was what you're supposed to do, and you took it very seriously. You you did stretches, you looked up exercises, you really just put your whole heart and soul into it, with no guarantee that anything was ever going to come out of it except just throwing in the yard all the time.
that's right. And the great thing is you were very encouraging about it because I'd be in the yard by myself throwing like an idiot at 40, something years old. And I'd be like, this is stupid. What am I doing? Nothing's ever going to happen. I'm just some middle-aged guy. And for one, you would say, well, are you having fun doing it? And I'd be like, yeah. And you're like, then just keep doing it and have fun. I was like, okay. Along with that, though, I feel like in the back of my spirit, I would discern the Lord telling me the same thing. I'd be like, Lord, this is stupid. What am I doing? I'm wasting my time. And I would just kind of understand. The Lord would be like, well, are you having fun? I'm like, yeah. And then he would say, then just keep practicing. And so that's what I did. And you're right. I've started to forget these things because this is like years ago now. But like it was just me throwing into a net by myself. And I would try to figure out different pitches because I was a catcher growing up. And I did pitch here and there in college whenever they need like a spare arm. And my arm was always very strong, very good. But it was just me getting up on the mound and throwing the ball. Like I don't even know what seams I used. So I had to figure out over those 3 years by myself, being faithful to do what I think God was calling me to do, of figuring out like, okay, 4-seam fastball does this, 2-seam fastball does this, how to throw a curveball to where it really works and a slider and all that. I did also go to a baseball training facility in College Station for a little bit, but I was a graduate student and we could not afford for me to go very much because it was like $100 a lesson. And I got some tips and tricks and thoughts and some training techniques from 2 of the professionals there, which is fantastic. And I carried that into my own training, but mostly it was just me. And one of the pitches that I picked up over that time is the knuckleball, which is arguably the hardest pitch to throw because typically the baseball spins when you throw it, and you want it to have a whole bunch of spin because when you do that, it can move different directions. Well, the point of the knuckleball is you hold it in a way and you throw it, you kind of just push it out of your hand, and it does not rotate. It does not spin at all. It just kind of does this. And because of that, it just floats and is prone to any variations in wind patterns or air and all that, which makes it really, really cool. And it was like, I felt like the Lord called me to work on that pitch too. And along with me kind of figuring things out, I remember trying to hold the knuckleball different ways, and it just was never really working until in my spirit, I felt like the Lord said, hey man, try it with 3 fingers, against the seams. And it took a while, but it started to work like that, where I throw the knuckleball. I will never forget my very first time of throwing the knuckleball in a game. I hadn't played baseball in years and years. I come to the Houston Baseball Association. I tried out, and that team called the Hellcats picked me up. I did a bullpen for the coach, and then I went into the game as a relief pitcher. And for the very first batter, I threw a fastball and then a slider, which are kind of controllable pitches. And then it was like I just felt the Lord saying, all right, man, now let's do this knuckleball. And I shook the catcher off until he called knuckleball. And in my conversation, as I'm getting ready to pitch, I'm looking into the batter there with the umpire and fans in the stands. I'm like, okay, Lord, either this pitch works or it doesn't. And all of this is fake because this is the hardest pitch to throw. So my very first game back, I throw the knuckleball, and it comes out of my hand surprisingly and floats around. Strike. The batter swings right through it. it was amazing. It was like the Lord actually had his hand on what he was doing. And those 3 years of me practicing by myself in the dark, without knowing what's going on, finally came to fruition in that moment, throwing the hardest pitch in the game for a strike. And it's like, whoa, this is real. This is real. God has me doing something here.
It's like a movie, because it's like you can imagine the whole buildup of this guy, just trying and
Yeah.
working through life. And then that would be like the last shot. He throws the knuckleball, and it'd be like a strikeout where the guy goes down on his knee. And it's like a movie. That
Yeah.
you're living your own movie.
That's what I like to live anyways. I think about, okay, what would the heroic character in this movie do? And I try to do that myself, because what else is there to do in life but try to have fun and live adventuresome for the Lord? That's the whole goal. So that's a little bit of my journey as a baseball player, coming back to the game in my late 40s, and definitely our win over the Marlins in the Houston Baseball Association this week, to where I was dominant. I struck out 5 batters in a row, but also I was humble, and the Lord kept me from being the guy that does it all on his own, because there's a lot of drama in there. And so, much like the movie Happy Gilmore, which is a golf movie, I find myself having to learn to be that perfect balance of joyful and fun, filled with drama of a story from a guy that's rising up from nothing, to making sure that I don't lose control of my emotions and temper and all that, as I'm trying to throw strikes and things don't happen my way, and just let go and enjoy this story that the Lord has brought me into.
That's why I love being your supporter, because I get to be involved in all of that as well. I get to see everything that's going on with you. So I love being your partner in all of these crazy adventures, and being the one who says, are you having fun? Then just keep doing it.
It's definitely fun. I have to admit that I have more fun, much more fun now in my late 40s playing baseball than I did when I was a kid in high school and college. Because when I was in high school and college, I felt like I had the calling from the Lord that I was going to play baseball to glorify Him. And what I mean is to point the way to Him, because that was my plan, to be a Major League Baseball superstar and use all of that to point all the glory to the Lord. Well, It didn't happen. And looking back, I know why, because I was so focused on winning and trying to be the best, and all of the aspects that don't matter, really. It's about enjoying the game and lifting people up around you. And I didn't do that when I was a kid, because I took it so seriously that there was no joy in it. And I would lose more and more, and I would perform not as good more and more, simply, I think, because I was so focused on winning and getting to the major leagues that I just took it for granted. I just didn't have any joy in it. So now, after, let's say, 23, 25 years of not getting baseball at all, and now that I'm back in it, man, I don't take anything for granted. I just simply enjoy it. And what I want to do is spread that joy to the people on my team, to the people in the league, and anybody that has to be watching. Because at the end of the day, I'm super grateful for what the Lord has done for me in just the game of baseball. And I want to use whatever He gives me, all of the drama, and point to Him and say, no, I'm not perfect. I fail. I load the bases. I get exhausted from heat stroke, in the sun. But still, I'm just grateful to be here because of what the Lord has done in my life. And that is very freeing. And that joy, I think, people can see in me.
I think so too, and I think that it really helps them to loosen up and enjoy the game, and not be, of course, be competitive. It's a competitive league, but really focus more on the blessing of being able to do what you're doing, and getting to be part of something so exciting.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what the Lord does with me on this journey of faith to play baseball. But at the same time, it's already been joyous and fun to see what He has done at 49 years old. So that's our podcast for the day, discussing baseball in that area of our ministry, our calling from the Lord. And I think I will turn it over to you to leave us with something that's inspirational for people to take away.
Okay, so thinking back, talking about your strikeouts, there are times when you're just working as hard as you can, and it doesn't seem like you're accomplishing much. It feels like it's long and arduous. But then you get to the end of it, and you look back and you realize, I was part of something great. I accomplished something really cool. And so as you go into the next week, no, it could be hard. It could be difficult. But live that week knowing that you could look back and say, I did something really good. And so that will make it a good week.
I love it. I actually thought of something while you were saying that, and I'm gonna say this, and I mean it straight up. Okay, so there's a movie called Fever Pitch, which with Drew Barrymore and Jimmy Fallon. It just happens to be when the Boston Red Sox broke the curse and they won the World Series back in 2004. They beat the Yankees in the ALCS, the championship series, but then they went on to win the World Series. There's a moment that you may not even really catch, but they're in the concession stand area, and Jimmy Fallon says, "What I love about baseball is you can't fake it. It's real. You can either hit a curveball or you can't." And what I took away from that is like, please hear me on this. I'm not like judging or all that, but what I'm saying is like baseball is super hard. You cannot fake all of these different things that happen. Sure, there's some teams out there that can cheat and figure out ways to steal signs and all that, but like the game of baseball is not manipulated in the way that you see other aspects of life or sports being manipulated, okay? Baseball is straight up. And that's what I like about it, because when I try to throw a knuckleball, I have no idea where it's going to go. When I get up on the mound, I don't know if I'm going to win or lose. And that to me is what makes it so rich. You just don't know, because baseball is real. And if you're looking for something in your life to where you can get rid of all of that control, which seems great, it's like we have control, we can make the decisions. I understand that desire. I get it. Like I want to control. I want to get up there on the mound and I want to throw strikes and I want to win. I want that. But also, what's real is in the success and failure that you don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen when I throw a pitch. And that's what makes it so rich. And I want that for you. I want that for you. The Christian life, a lot of times, is about following Jesus where he calls you and letting go, because you don't know what's really going to happen. And sure, you can get understandings and discernments of maybe where the Lord is taking you, but at the end of the day, it's about stepping out on faith. And that's what makes it so real, because in that way, you let go of the control. And in that, you are free, because Jesus frees you. So my encouragement to you is in all of our desires to control and to win, God calls us to let go. God calls us to let go. And I see the game of baseball as a game that cannot be faked. And I want that for you. Where are you in your life that you are having all of that control and you're holding on so much that it's actually not good for you? Let go. Let go. Step out on faith. Drop your need to control everything and see what the Lord does with it. That's our show, and we'll see you again next week.